Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello, is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out.
Holly Swenson is an award-winning author of Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, registered nurse, wellness blogger, and a perpetual student of life. Drawing from her nursing background and personal experience as a mother, she's on a mission to raise the bar for parents and infuse more joy, intention, balance, and wellness into parenting and beyond. Today, she joins us to talk about the 5 rights of parenting and to use them as a blueprint to raise happy kids through intentional choices. Holly enjoys spending time with her husband and 4 boys, enjoying the outdoors, gardening, doing yoga, traveling, and living life to the fullest. Hi, Holly. Welcome to A Mom's Night Out.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're so excited to have you. I just want to jump right in. I think what interested me most about you is just how simple your approach is. Some parenting advice is just way too hard to follow, and you just break it down so simple and it's great. What really resonated with me was the 5 rights of parenting. And before we get into the 5 rights of parenting, if you could just walk through, how did you even come up with the 5 rights of parenting?
Sure. Well, thank you. I definitely want my work to feel digestible and relatable because parents don't need something that's more complicated than life already is. So for me, my training was as a nurse, so I'm an RN. And before I had kids, when I was in the hospital, there's something called the 5 rights of medication administration, which is something that you practice before you pass a medication. So you're looking at things like right dose, right time, right patient, that kind of thing. And for me, I really appreciate building on previous knowledge. And so this was a way that I could build on a concept that I'd already checked in my belt, essentially, and then put a parenting spin on it. And so I don't know if you want me to break those down for you.
Yeah. Can you walk us through the 5 rights of parenting?
Let's do it. So, and then the other thing I want to add, I guess, before I jump in is that these 5 rights are really designed to be a quick way to touch base with yourself on how you're presenting as a parent. And then they also just help ensure that you're doing the right thing and not causing unnecessary harm to your child or yourself in the process of parenting. So you want to really think of these rights as just this like supportive parenting protocol. And the first one is right now. And this one is really about, being in the moment with your child and being present, not texting, not working on 3 different things. But when your child, needs you and shows up, try to go all in if you can. There are obviously going to be plenty of moments where you're like, I really can't shift gears. And that's okay. But I think it's important to still connect and say, hey, I'm working on this for the next half an hour, but in a half an hour, you're going to have my full and undivided attention. Because in parenting, there really are no repeats. And so that time you have with your kids is really precious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So important.
Like you're talking to me.
And it's so relevant because like
we just went in. Yeah, we just hit, we're just starting summer. And so I feel like that is hitting me hard right now.
Yeah.
And
it's hard. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I work from home. So when my kids are home, I'm not done with my work day yet.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because they'll be like, mom, mom, mom. And I honestly, sometimes I just tune them out, and that is not great for anybody.
I know.
It's a hard one. It's a delicate balance, and I even feel it too. I think going from having your kids in school where you have more of a rhythm and routine for work, if you're working from home or wherever, to summer schedule where, you're together a lot more. It's hard to find that balance, but I just think, you want to try to maximize that precious time you have and live in the moment as often as possible. So that's the first right.
I love that one.
Thank you. And then the second one is right intent. And so this one really is steeped in being intentional with the choices that you make, the guidelines you set, and how you treat your child. So, if you don't know how or why you're doing what you're doing, it might be time to reevaluate your strategy. I think a lot of times parents are, maybe passing down, what they experienced as a child. And maybe it didn't feel very good, but you don't know any other way. And so if you're having a lot of pushback, or if you're having a lot of struggles, it might just be an invitation to further examine like what's up and really try to go a little bit deeper, with yourself, and then see if maybe, you can lean on other resources or or different ways of connecting, relating, maybe setting boundaries with your family, your children.
Also love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I'm like, we're only on 2. And
I know.
Check.
I know. These are hitting hard.
I'm glad they're landing. The third one is the right use of speech. And this is a big one, right? So your voice is a tool of creation. And so you have the power to uplift or tear down. And I think...
Holly.
I'm glad we're in alignment here. I'm glad this is... I think that, this can be one of the toughest rights to implement. And so I think you really want to, just speak with mindfulness. And if you forget, which you will, lots of times over the course of raising your kids, you want to apologize. I really believe in the power of apology. I practice it all the time with my kids. We're only human. And so I think setting a realistic bar for, realizing that you're going to try your best and you want to show up and you want to speak with kindness, but in those moments of imperfection, you make it right and you role model how to apologize. I think it's really an important skill to build.
I agree.
Love that.
Yeah.
And it's such a good reminder too, because it's one of those things where you can easily forget it in the moment.
Yeah.
I know when you've, asked someone 150 times, right? But I love that you can build up or you can tear down. So it's so important.
Yes. And the fourth one is the right use of power. And this one, you really want to wield your power with care because you are the one who's responsible for setting those boundaries, discipline, and you ultimately have that final say in whatever issues might arise along those 18 years that you're blessed to have your kids under your roof. And so I think you want to be careful to not abuse that power. And again, be intentional in the framework that you set for your child and for, those boundaries that you set in the home. And they're going to be different for every family, but I do think it's important to establish boundaries, to have that framework so that your kids know what's okay and what's not. It's healthy for you. It's healthy for your kids. I really believe in boundary setting. So, but be mindful about it. Don't just throw your weight around. I think you want to, try to connect and be as sincere and as kind as possible. And there's going to be moments where you have to maybe be a little more like, hey, that's not okay. But just, maybe check in with yourself on how you're showing up in that realm.
I love that.
And I think it's important too, even when you get to the end, that works with a toddler, that works with somebody in, school age, that probably works with a lot of adolescents and teenagers too.
So true.
That one speaks to home too.
All of these are goals.
Thank you so much. Then the last one is the right use of love. And, this is by far my favorite right. I believe that love is the cure for all that ails us, parenting and beyond. And so, this right should be used as many times a day as you can aspire to. And letting your child know or your teen know how much you love them and are there for them is really just going to help them, plant their spirit in deep, rich soil, as they continue to grow and bloom into who they're meant to be. And so I think it's really important to give your love freely and without expectation. I often say that, your child is probably going to mirror that love you give them, but there's going to be moments they don't, especially as they get older, maybe once they're hitting teen years. But you want to give it anyways because it is being felt and it is being received and it does make a difference.
Wow.
I know. I love that. Okay, how can parents use the 5 rights as a gut check during times of meltdown or parenting conflict? I don't know. I feel like I am right now. We were talking about coming off of school into summer, and there's a lot of meltdowns happening.
Oh yeah.
So many meltdowns, big emotion.
Help us through that.
Yes.
So, if we're talking about a gut check moment, I think parents would really want to draw on the right use of speech, the right use of power, and the right use of love. Okay. So the right use of speech is super important when you're redirecting a challenging moment. You may need to take a serious deep breath yourself before you jump into action. And, the problem is that, when you're in that moment, you might be feeling triggered. And so if you give yourself that moment, it might help you to remember your leadership skills and your manners before you, say something sassy that you might later regret. And so
Never. Guilty. I know.
And so, I just think, giving yourself that moment of silence and pause and recalibration it can be far better than saying something that you'll later regret. And so we all have those moments of like, oh, I wish I had said that differently or better or more kindly, right? So So that's the first part of it. Right use of power, I think, is going to help you to quickly check in and just make sure that you're setting boundaries or consequences that you mean, and are setting those from a place of response versus reaction. Okay. And then finally, the right use of love will help you find connection. And then I think also just any possible repair at the end of a meltdown or conflict, so it's kind of like it's tiered a little bit of like pulling some of these in at different times. But I think that love is really important in nurturing respect, keeping your bond tight with your kids, even when you have those hard moments. And so you're going to have plenty of them. Right. And so I think that's those top three in a gut check moment.
I am super curious. So now that you've gone out and talked to several parents, well, more than several parents, what do you see is the most common wrong right that parents are making?
So I would say right use of speech.
Okay.
Saying things or setting consequences that they later regret. Because I think we have those hard moments where you're like, you're grounded for a week or whatever, whatever.
Yeah. You're grounded forever.
Right. You're grounded forever. Whatever that is, and I think it's so much because it stems from that reactive parenting. I think us were raised with like reactive parents. And so that's what we know. It's instinctual. It's like what's there waiting for us. And so when your kid's triggered, it triggers you. And then it like becomes this like tornado, right? But what I really try to promote is that your child can have their dysregulation, their moment of tantrum, their moment of whatever, but you don't have to join them, right? So you can be that calm in the storm, and you always have a choice of how you show up. And so, that's power that you can take back as a parent, that even when you're being triggered, you don't have to participate. And in fact, it'll end smoother if you can hold your own in a way that's not, big and stormy. So I think it's a practice, right? But I think that's and I think also I would say practicing self-compassion, and keep trying to improve, taking it one day at a time and just celebrating those small wins, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think going back to what you said earlier, like it's okay. It happens, but also then there's that follow-up of explaining to your child in the moment, I am like, wow, I lost my cool.
I know.
And apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it's easy not to.
I know. I feel like me personally, I'm very self-aware of when I am making the wrong choice, right? Like when I'm doing the wrong thing, I know, even sometimes in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I love that. And I'm wondering, is there one of the 5 rights that's hardest for you personally? And how do you work through it in your own family?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, I have to say right use of speech is probably the hardest for me. And, we have 4 children. And so I have lots of tools and wisdom to draw from, but I still have those moments of imperfection, and so, there's moments where you feel overwhelmed as a parent, or like you've got, a bunch of work you've got going, or maybe you didn't sleep as well, or you've got, like we have a bunch of teenagers right now. So I might have a bunch of kids in the house, and, you just have those moments. And so I think for me personally, like juggling a lot, sometimes I don't show up the way I intend to. And so, if I misspeak, I really, again, I already kind of touched on this, but I work through this by practicing that reparation and trying to, like, after the fact, come back together, say, hey man, sorry, I really didn't, show up the way I meant to. And honestly, kids are so forgiving. Like kids are amazing.
Almost too forgiving.
Too forgiving, and so I think, just it goes back to role modeling what it means to be human and teaching them that as they grow up, practicing apology is really powerful medicine. And not everybody is willing to apologize. But I agree. I think it's something that everyone should practice because we'd have a kinder world to live in.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree
it's
more.
so true.
Yeah.
I definitely have seen I apologize to my kids a lot, candidly. Like, what does that say about me? I'm messing up a lot. But I've seen my oldest start to mirror it back, right? So she'll come find me and she'll apologize if she knows like we had words or she did something wrong. And that is pretty impressive, I think, at 8 years old to see someone able to apologize already, right?
Yes, it's huge. They're sponges. They're soaking all that up. I mean,
it works.
It's incredible. And I think, they want to be seen and heard and validated. And, they're going to make all kinds of mistakes. But the reality is you being a parent, you're going to make all kinds of mistakes too. So just embracing each other's, imperfect journey is really helpful.
I love that.
I know, me too. Okay, if there's a listener who wanted to start applying this framework today, what's a simple first step that they could take to build awareness around it?
Sure. So, I think there really should be curiosity and a willingness to partner with any framework or tools you use as a parent, whether they're mine or anyone else's. So I think there needs to first feel like a level of alignment, like kind of, what you're hearing, like, does this feel like this could work well for me or not? I just think that's an important step. But I would also, excuse me, say that, when that's in place, then start to, put these into practice. So start bite size. And if these rights feel new, start small and then grow from there, right? So, give yourself time to make some transitions and start to include them into your daily life. Don't try to take it all on at once. Don't try to revamp your whole system. Like, just start small. And the more self-awareness you can cultivate in your life, the easier these rights are going to become, because you'll start to notice when and how you show up. And so, how your presence is impacting your family for the better or for the worse. And, and that might vary from day to day, right? That's normal, but just start to notice.
Yeah. I want to shift. So I think we've covered the five rights, and you talk a lot about using the 5 rights and how they can really raise happy children through these intentional choices. Mm-hmm. Can you break down why intentional choices and what those are and why they're so important?
Yeah, well, for one, intentional choice enables parents to parent responsibly versus reactively. It's that simple.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Again, like a simple concept, but it's easy to forget.
I know.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you want me to jump in, but reaction versus response is huge. So do you guys want to go there?
Yeah. Can you talk us through responsive versus reactive parenting?
Yes. So there's a huge difference between reaction versus response. And I think learning to distinguish between the two, it's going to help you navigate parenthood with more poise. And the biggest difference is the level of consciousness involved. Okay. So reaction is rooted in instinct, and it's typically unconscious. And response, on the other hand, is more deliberate in nature. And there is a level of consciousness present when you're interacting with another or your children. Okay, so that's the level of consciousness is one of the biggest differences between the two. And reaction is instinctual. And so that is what's easy to ignite when you're raising your kids. It's what's there waiting for you. And I think it's that easy go-to. And it's what most of us know and are comfortable with, which isn't always, for the better. But, reaction really isn't thought out or a very helpful way to redirect what's in front of you, because a lot of times it's emotion driven, right? It's driven by impulse. You're shooting right back to your child what they're offering to you. And as I said before, you don't have to join in their tornado. You have a choice to stand your ground in a way that's not crazy. You can be that calm in the storm. But, often parents have to make that snap decision, and they don't really have the luxury to think about how they want to optimally reply to a request or, a naughty action or whatever. And so in that moment of feeling overwhelmed, that's when, you might say something that you may later regret or set consequences that you're like, I should have thought about that before I said it. But now, since I've said it, now we got to stick to it, or, so.
We're leaving right now.
That's right.
I know.
So I think so if your typical approach is, to your child having a tantrum is to scold them or get big or get loud, try to stop and give them a hug and get quiet. Okay. Oftentimes you're going to both benefit from a softer place to land. And this doesn't mean that you become a pushover, but a lot of issues that rise up with kids, sometimes, you need to set firmer boundaries, and maybe a hug isn't appropriate. Your kids best. But if it's something that you're like, it didn't need to get that big, try to just take it down. And it honestly is harder to get soft in those hard moments than it is to get hard. So that makes sense. So it's easier to be, harsh and grouchy and loud or irritable or whatever that is, but trying to soften those edges, you're both going to feel better at the end of that exchange. So it's just an invitation, something to get curious about. In terms of response, okay, this is more considerate and thoughtful in nature. because you stop and process before you open your mouth. And this is a game changer. Response takes more work and more patience, both with yourself and with your children. But when you respond, it allows you to process, to remember your manners and your intention, right? And so those are important. And typically, more solution-oriented response is typically more, solution-oriented than punitive, which is a positive. And then finally, responding allows you to improve your social skills. It allows for more self-awareness, self-regulation, and empathy, and truly just helps deepen that connection with your child. And so I think there's a huge win if you're willing to start adopting responsive parenting, in your life, truly.
I love this. I keep thinking back to work, right? So we're all working moms, and I'm like, I'm very responsive for the most part at work and not reactive. And so I think if you could bring that to your parenting, I'm definitely a more reactive parent. And so definitely. I'm thinking through, I'm like, wow, that power pause is so huge, right? Like you don't just fly off the handle and say something crazy to your coworkers.
Write it and then delete it.
Yeah, you pause, right? You're pausing. So for the working moms listening, I feel like bring that energy from work into parenting.
Yeah.
That kind of feels like where you're going with this.
That's right. Yeah. And it's, like I said, start small. If you've been in reactive mode, most of your child rearing, you don't have to change it overnight, but just start to notice. And honestly, when you get curious and you're like, oh, wow, I was way snappier than I meant to be, or I didn't really need to respond like that. It's just, or react like that, I should say. But it's just start noticing more, be a witness in your own life and try to it's which isn't always easy because most people are on autopilot and they aren't really even paying attention to how they show up. But again, just try to start noticing and you will start to pick up on patterns and habits. And some of them you might really want to shift.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love hugs.
I know. It's ironic because when you said that, I'm not a hugger, but it's funny because in my house with my kids, when I see them spiraling, I give them a big hug.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because it calms them down. It's truly.
It really does.
It does.
Hugs fix everything.
We need more hugs in this world. Which is great. I want to transition to the book because I think there's a lot of tools in there for in the moment of if you're reactive, how to actually switch to being more responsive. So you have the book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. Can you talk us a little bit through of why you wrote the book, and then we can go into the different tools, steps?
Sure. Yeah. So I wrote the book because I am the mother of 4, and I really just felt called to service to help parents everywhere find healthier ways of being, right? I think a lot of parents lose their identity when they step into parenthood, and I think it's really important to have a strong sense of who you are as a parent, but also who you are as an individual, and to nurture both. And so for me, we have 4. Our oldest are just about to turn 15. And so I've had to learn different things over the course of, the years of raising my kids. And so I really wanted to create something that felt, very helpful, very practical, and also invite a deep level of work for parents who really want to take their life and their parenting to the next level. And so that is what this book is rooted in, is just for me, this is my service project to the world. I just want to help. I want to help parents thrive. That's what it's all about.
I just got the chills. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. I feel like we're all connecting to this so much. So obviously it's working.
It's just, the concepts were so simple and easily outlined. Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to walk through the 4? So stop. So what is stop?
Sure. So they do build on each other, but stop is really stopping and doing some self-assessment on how you are doing as a parent and as a person. Because again, I think a lot of people don't give themselves that pause once they start down the road of being a parent. And so I think it's really important just to do that internal gazing on what's going well, as well as on, anything that isn't going well. Really cultivating that curiosity and inviting more consciousness into your journey so that you can start to like, shift in ways that maybe need shifting. So that's kind of the first piece. And that, those 5 rights of parenting, that falls underneath the STOP framework, for example. So there's work that you do on yourself to kind of go in and just like give yourself a pause and see like, how am I actually doing? It's a very important step. Drop is about learning to drop any trauma, any personal past lived experiences that are keeping you from living in the now. Okay, so by engaging, with this, you're going to allow yourself to be more present in your own life and for your family. And this step is really very freeing if you open yourself up to it. And sometimes this is work you can do by yourself. Other times it might be valuable to lean on a licensed therapist or a life coach or somebody to help you maybe shed some skins that you're, it's not about forgetting your past, but it's about like forgiving and embracing it and not letting it take away from what's in front of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then grow is really about learning to lean on habits that are going to help you expand as a parent. So, this can be diet, mindfulness, exercise, making sure you're prioritizing sleep for yourself and your kids, reducing substance in your life if that's an area you want to improve. And I also throw in this idea of thanking your children for all they teach you. I said that my children are like my gurus. My kids, like they've taught me more about myself and the areas that I still need to grow more than anyone else. Like,
so true.
I can't agree with
hands down. And so I think that's really important. Like, thank your kids because they are teaching you all kinds of stuff. Like you're teaching them, but they are imparting some deep wisdom to you as well.
Just gonna go home and give some more hugs.
I know that's amazing. Would you, if for someone who's doing this work, this is like, would you recommend like journaling about this? Like, I don't know,
Yes.
like what's the best way to work through all these steps?
Well, everyone has different things they like to lean on. So journaling is really powerful. I think it's a tremendous way to capture what's on your mind or anything you're trying to like release or, that sort of thing. In my book, at the end of each section, I have reflection questions so that you can, like, I didn't want somebody to read my book and then just like passively read it. I wanted them to really hold that mirror up and look at themselves too, like, reading this information, but then also like, how does this actually look in my life? Because I think it's an important step. So journaling can be powerful. I believe in meditation. Like I have a practice that I lean on almost every morning because it helps me to stay grounded. And so I think it's kind of finding what makes you happy, but journaling for sure is a great way to capture something.
I think it helps, too, with growth.
I love
just
that
growth of like within yourself.
Yeah.
And then do you want to talk about the final of glow?
Yes, let's do it. So glow is learning to take what you've learned from my framework and then start to apply it to your life and living it out in the world. And a big part of this section is self-care. I believe so deeply in self-care. And, I think we really need to reframe self-care from being selfish to something that really should just be, a baseline currency for keeping your tank full. This should be something that happens every single day. And even if it's 5 minutes, like it doesn't have to be big or bougie or, expensive. Like
we're not going to the spa every day.
No, I mean, some of it is fun.
Holly, come on. I was going to send this clip to my husband.
If you need me to edit that piece, I will.
Redo it.
No, I love that.
Me too. I can think of like 5 examples of how I could input that.
I know.
In my daily life.
We talk to women right into the podcast all the time, and we're constantly telling them like, girl, go take the shower and don't feel bad about it. Go for a run, go work out and don't feel bad about it. So I feel like that's what you're saying. This needs to be something people are practicing every single day.
Yeah.
Well, and I think something else I talk about is microdosing your self-care. So you can do so many little things throughout your day that by the time your head hits the pillow, you feel super nourished. So like for me, like I would do my meditation and I love green tea. So like I make my tea in the morning. I have my moment where I try to sit. Some days I can't. I wake up late or whatever, but I really try to prioritize that. You could even put on aromatherapy or music or, maybe it's meeting a friend for lunch, or getting out for a 20-minute walk. Or, there's so many little things that you can do that feel good and that help you feel taken care of.
I love that.
Ladies listening.
I know.
Okay. One final question. What's one shift, big or small, that you believe every parent can make today to bring more intention, connection, and calm into their family life?
Okay. Well, I just touched on it, but I have to say self-care.
Yeah.
That is the one big thing. And I again inviting it in every single day. Like don't put this off. Don't take care of yourself once a week or once a month, but like every day, that's where you're going to really see the shifts happen in your life. You're going to feel happier. You're going to be more joyful. You're going to show up for your children or your significant other in a way that you're proud of, because you feel fulfilled and sustained and you're taken care of. And so you can't draw from an empty well. Like we've all heard that, right?
Yeah.
So I just have come to believe that and know it on a very deep level, walking the path of motherhood. And so I cannot drive that point home enough. Like if you have heard nothing else I've said, start small, but 5 minutes a day at least to take care of yourself and you'll start noticing shifts in your life.
And I think it's important to remind our partners. We've talked about that before on the podcast. Like remind them like, hey, you need to take some time or whatever it is because they need it too. It's not just the mom.
That's so true.
Yeah.
All people, all humans.
Yeah.
The dads that are listening.
Both parents. Yeah. Dads. Do something. No,
Not ours.
That's such a good point.
That is a good point because both parents need to really be there. Wow. Okay, Holly, I am very happy that you took this on as your life mission.
I know. You are incredible. This is amazing work.
Like I feel like I can go be a better parent just with those simple points, which is insane.
I know.
But for people listening, I know we'll link this all in the show notes, your book, your Instagram, your website, but do you just want to tell people quickly how to find you?
Yes. So my website is liveyourglow.live. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Holly Swenson _liveyourglow. And then if you're interested in my book, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy your books. And it's also on Audible and anywhere you buy your audiobooks.
Ooh, see? So there's no excuse to not listen. I feel like all of our listeners are going to be buying this to listen to.
I mean, this is an episode that people will go back to over and over and over again. Because it's easy to forget. We can all get caught up in the moment.
So true.
But we always like to end on some fun questions. So what is something that you do just for you, like your own personal glow? What does that look like?
Okay, I've got a few for you. So my morning meditation, that is like very much a part of my foundational glow. It keeps me really just feeling connected, grateful. So that's probably the biggest piece. But I love, like this time of year, especially stepping into summer, I love to garden. So that's something I do just for me. I love it. Hiking, getting out in nature, and hot yoga. I'm really into hot yoga. It is like for sure my glow practice. Like I just got out of the studio feeling like amazing. So those are some of my favorites.
It is amazing, like how a workout can just change your
changes your whole life.
Everything.
I know.
Yes.
Okay, we have a lot of veteran moms on here, but we also have a lot of new moms. And so if you could go back and tell your first time mom self one thing, what would it be?
I love this question. So I would say let go of the need to control. Well,
I just had goosebumps, by the way.
As well as just like loosening the reins on your ego, right? Parenting in many ways is that crash course in learning to surrender to what is versus what you think it should be. And that is really hard for, I think, especially if you're like, a first-time mom or you're just trying to figure it out. There's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves to like have everything look perfect. And, when your kid's screaming in the store or, whatever it is, it can be hard to just kind of like breathe through it. But like, just let go a little more than you think you can. Because I think the less that you cling to the control of what parenting should look like and flow with what it is, the more easy you're going to start to cultivate in your life.
Wow.
I love that.
I feel like you were just sent here.
I know the universe definitely did something by setting up this episode. I'm like, wow, this is everything I needed to hear today.
Especially this time of year for me. Okay, if you had a superpower, what would you wish for?
Yeah, so world peace. That's one that gets thrown out a lot, but I'm there. World peace, the kind of peace that creates unity, joy, wellness, understanding. and health for our people and the planet. Peace on every level for all beings would be my wish.
Holly, I think that you should go be Miss America.
No, I know. Honestly, I keep thinking, I'm like, I want Holly as my mom. I feel like your kids are so incredibly fortunate to have you.
Your kids are lucky to have you too. I can tell how much you care, and you're doing this important work in the world too.
Thank you.
People supporting people, parents supporting parents. It takes.
No, that's true. That's like our foundation.
And amplifying important voices, right? Like this is like such a reminder of why we do this podcast. Like, so thank you. Because it's like voices like yours need to be heard. So
yes.
I'm going to cry.
I know. I did not. Yeah, was not expecting
This is amazing.
I got goosebumps multiple times there. So everybody, I hope you appreciate this episode. Follow Holly, read the book,
I know.
and implement this
Read
into
the
your
book
lives.
or listen to the book.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.